Well, all right. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Salt City Hoops live postcast. I'm Mark Pereira. Got to get a beer going for this one. We are drinking a mere 5% beer today because it's Wednesday. I'm pouring it off screen here. I should lift this up a little bit. I'll show the beer in a second. Well, I do love my Imperial Stouts and my all my weird dark beers that clock in at 9, 10, 11, 12%. This is a Czech lager that we're drinking today from Four Noses in Colorado here. And it's a dark beer, but it clocks in at a mere 5%. And that's what's going to keep us having a good time at work tomorrow without hating ourselves. Another group of folks who is having a good time and not hating themselves is the Utah Jazz, who are 10-3. And I'm left beside myself again, but we're having a really good time with this. Game ended a little while ago, but it's hard on these East Coast games. You know, you start watching it right after work, and you're getting dinner ready for the kids, putting them down. So I appreciate y'all joining me today to talk about the Jazz and talk. We'll bounce around the NBA a little bit. The past few games, the Jazz have been the last game to end of the night. So towards the end, we might poke around and see what's going on with the good old Lakers, and then of course the Kings and Cavaliers are also going on. I'm thrilled today, and we'll chat a little bit about the game today, and we'll chat a little bit about the Jazz going forward on this road trip. And I don't need to do any more introduction, I don't think. This was a Utah bench win today. We had a lot of great performances from the starters. In particular, I actually think Jordan Clarkson was the best starter of the group today. Lauri Markkanen had a fabulous game with 32 points and 8 rebounds, but he struggled a little bit defensively here and there, and he was obviously 32 points is his Utah Jazz high so far, but he was getting torched a little bit against the Atlanta opponent starting group, whereas the Jazz bench just completely took it to Atlanta's bench unit. If you look at the plus minuses for a minute, right, and you see that Jordan Clarkson's a plus 16, Rudy Gay's a plus 18, although I frankly thought he was pretty miserable today. But Walker Kessler was a deserved plus 14, Malik Beasley was plus 13, Talen Horton-Tucker was plus 17. Colin Sexton has probably had the worst game out of any Jazz player on the team today. He was minus 10 in just 13 minutes today. It also helped that Mike Conley really had it going with 13 assists today. And so the bench really carried that forward, right? And it was mainly Kessler and Beasley who were probably at their apex forms today. Kessler only playing 16 minutes, right? But 12 points on perfect shooting and 3 blocks. And he completely dominated, I thought, Onyeka Okongwu, who is the Hawks' backup center, but is supposed to be their star of the future. He's a former lottery pick for the Hawks and has gotten accolades from Zach Lowe and other smart basketball people love Onyeka Okongwu, and he's a pretty talented guy, and he's got some skills, but Walker Kessler completely outclassed him today. He blocked Okongwu, I think 2 out of his 3 blocks were on Okongwu, and Malik Beasley was his perfect form today. Solid defense against bench units. Ended up closing the game over Colin Sexton. If you're wondering why did Sexton only get 13 minutes? Well, Sexton was kind of a struggle today, but normally he would be able to push through that, and Hardy will give him more minutes. But Malik Beasley just had it absolutely on fire today. 6 of 10 from 3. And a lot of them were just beautiful, beautiful threes. That is Malik Beasley, right? He's not shooting inside the arc. He's got a little bit of an inside game more than he's shown in Utah so far. But it's been really quality basketball from him from outside the arc, and that's why he's there. So he was complete apex form today. He was fabulous. Talen Horton-Tucker, another game where I was completely thrilled with his performance, where he never stopped the ball, and if he ever got in a situation where he did need to completely stop the possession and the ball would move to another player and just quickly continue the offense, otherwise he was getting the ball off the catch and just lumbering down the lane and making good plays with athleticism instead of just stopping the ball and not really having an idea of what to do with it. Hit 2 of 4 from 3. Very confident stroke. He really likes that above the break 3. He's missed badly on some corner 3s this year. I wonder if he's just one of those guys that just needs to see some semblance of the backboard as like a depth perception thing for him. But he had a step back 3 attempt that did not go in, but otherwise he's 2 of 4 from 3. Can't complain. His defense was stellar today. Had a wild block. He was 3 of 8 from the field, but I thought he had one offensive foul. I just thought he was lumbering down the lane against a smaller player who didn't have his feet set, and he got called for an offensive foul. Wasn't too sure about that. If there's one thing, Utah has a little bit of luck in each game, and sorry for those watching on stream, I have an itchy nose. I'm trying to get rid of it. Utah gets a little bit of luck each game, and you do need luck against good teams, right, to continue these wins. Utah is not, they've played a very tough schedule. And the luck thing today is, well, I do think that the officiating was balanced overall. I thought Trae Young got a miserable whistle from the referees today. And frankly, I just fucking hate watching Trae Young draw fouls in the way he does. And I'm not here to argue the rule book. There are fouls, and if he's drawing calls, it's like, excuse me, it's been one of his skills since his Oklahoma days. Very advanced foul drawing technique. But it can be a really miserable watch. And the Hawks are, I don't know what they are as a team, but when I look at the players in the roster, especially now with DeJounte Murray, who is a high free throw drawer, Trae Young did not shoot a single free throw today. And say what you want about Trae Young's foul drawing or how the officiating was on balance, that shit just doesn't happen. So he ends up 10 of 28 from the field, and that looks like a miserable shooting percentage. And I think under a lot of circumstances, especially in front of a home crowd in Atlanta, 7, 8, 9 of those misses are trips to the free throw line, where all of a sudden he's shooting 15 to 16 from the free throw line or something crazy, or even just 5 of those misses, right? So if he goes 10 and 23 from the field and 10 and 10 from the free throw line, that's a win for Atlanta. That ends up being a victory for them. So I'm going to take a drink of this beer real quick. I poured it and didn't drink it. Wow. So I thought that was definitely a differentiator that they got a little lucky with today. DeJounte Murray was a very good for Atlanta, but I don't think that was a particularly special or bad, weird performance in either direction. And Clint Capella, though, completely dominated the offensive rebounding game for Atlanta. And I think the only counterpoint that I would accept to the Trae Young officiating situation is almost all of his misses were getting cleaned up by Capella. And those were leading to baskets or fouls in another way. And I thought Olynyk struggled on the boards, Markkanen struggled on the boards, and Vanderbilt is out there guarding a DeAndre Hunter or DeJounte Murray. And so, yeah, Vanderbilt ends up with 7 rebounds today, but he's not in the thick of it getting really competing with this opposing Clint Capella on the boards there. So Clint Capella ends up with 19 rebounds today. That's a Capella skill. He's a great rebounder. He's a good player. And I wasn't necessarily surprised by that. But the rebounding was a little bit of an issue today. If you take a look at the stats here real quick, 90th. Atlanta had an offensive rebound percentage of 35% today, which would be a 90th percentile, and their free throw rate was 8.3%, which would be one of the 3 or 4 worst marks in the entire season this year. They went 9 for 11 from the free throw line. Again, no free throws from Trae Young. I think that's a big differentiator today for how Utah was able to pull this one off. And I do think that there's some skill involved in that too, right? Like Mike Conley's pretty good at avoiding fouling a lot of those types of players. He's not going to succumb to dumb fouls in that direction. Jordan Clarkson, his defense has been pretty remarkable this year, and he didn't keep Trae Young in front of him. He was not good at that, and that's not really what he's going to do. But he did force Trae Young to take tougher angles towards the rim, and Jordan Clarkson kept his hands off of him. for the most part. I thought there were some fouls that could have been called, especially on Clarkson, but everyone stayed out of foul trouble today. Kelly Olynyk had 3 dumb fouls, but otherwise in 21 minutes he wasn't completely out of his element. And I'm kind of underrating, I think, Lauri Markkanen's performance today, but he was 6 of 8 from 3. And when you look at all of the warts that you could maybe poke at Lauri Markkanen's game so far this season, you're looking at that 30% three-point percentage. And he was stroking it today very confidently, not like, trying to get on schedule and really thinking about the threes. Nope. Just playing in the flow of the offense and shooting the 3, and he was 6 of 8 today. And it was just that overall package of an offensive performance was on display. I've lamented him being a dependent threat where he's not necessarily initiating action or taking guys off the dribble. He was doing a whole lot of that today, and he was scoring among the trees. He was battling Capella and John Collins for good scoring opportunities, and he didn't have a lot of opportunities to really pass the ball. And so he's not quite this Gordon Hayward type like Andy Larson has compared him to as far as his style and a scoring set. So he's not really a distributor, but he gets a lot of his assists on the fast break. Just the way the game went, he didn't really have any transition opportunities to kick it out. And so I thought it was just a nice solid game for Markkanen that those 32 points, those 8 rebounds, it looks great, scored a lot of points. He was 6 of 8 from 3, and it's going to happen. When you're scoring 18 of your points from 3 and you're shooting just a few more shots and around the basket, 32 points is going to happen. Really remarkable guy to have on the team, don't get me wrong. I just think that Jordan Clarkson's overall performance, defensively, offensively, just 2 turnovers, a plus 16, really stretching the defense. Clarkson's fire is just completely different this year. He doesn't have this... When you watch Clarkson play, like last couple years to this year, it isn't totally this carefree, I'm just going to shoot it whenever I get the ball, or that's what the team is relying on me. And he's given interviews to this effect of the team kind of needs me more, and it's not weighing him down. It's instead emboldened him to completely kick a whole lot of ass, and he's got this way more fiery personality on the court now. He does not lament bad foul calls to the point of not getting back in transition. He'll throw his arms up, but he gets right back and contests and plays solid defense. And I loved watching Jordan Clarkson play today. And Mike Conley completely had Trae Young on a string today. Mike Conley didn't score well today. He only went 2 of 6, but he only shot 6 attempts. Like, that's not a big deal. 0-2 from 3. And when Mike Conley's getting 13 assists, that means he is completely warping the defense to what he wants to have happen. And from there, I think that covers everyone who played today, and that was a lot of fun. And let's take a look at the schedule here coming up for the Jazz. So I know they have Washington and New York, or Philly, I'm sorry. That'll be a Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. Before the Knicks come to town, the Knicks and their star player, Leverage, come to town to play the Jazz come next Tuesday. But for now, this is just a very solid win, again, a road win, and we should stop being surprised that this team is doing so well. A couple big highlights for me today involve Talen Horton-Tucker. Big block. I forget who was driving for Atlanta, but it started with a Clarkson miss, transition opportunity for Atlanta. THT completely just keeps his momentum going, defends from behind on the fast break, gets a monster block that is going out of bounds, but THT manages to recover his balance, and because the ball is still in the air and takes one bounce inbounds, THT has enough time to get the ball back, and he is sprinting from out of bounds. He's 10 feet out of bounds at this point, and to get the ball, he reestablishes himself inbounds, and he has momentum and just picks the ball up, and he's flying down the court. Now, Clarkson wasn't complaining or anything, but when Clarkson missed the shot, he fell down. And so he fell down wildly in the corner. He's ending up in the Jazz bench. He fell over so poorly. that by the time THT has made this monster block, this monster recovery, and streaming down the court, Jordan Clarkson is finally getting up, and he's standing in the corner. And so it's a THT and Markkanen 2-on-1. Could be an easy two-man game for a basket. Instead, he just kicks it out to a Jordan Clarkson wide open in the corner who was blending in with the Jazz bench. It was almost hard to see him, and that was an easy three-pointer. And from there, the Jazz, I don't think, trailed from there. And that was a pretty remarkable sequence there. Jordan Clarkson, also the reason I thought he had a great game was DeJounte Murray. He has a good offensive burden, but DeJounte Murray, his calling card is defense, right? His steals, his rebounds, he's a good player in that respect. And Clarkson really was doing a great job against him. Conley was matched up against Trae Young a lot of the time, and so Clarkson just had a nice performance against DeJounte Murray today. He's just got a real nice overall package, a lot of fire, a lot of physicality. It's just really fun to see. A lot of the comments today were about Walker Kessler, though, in his 16 minutes. And I know I talked about him a little earlier. I don't want to underrate what he did today. Just a total defensive force today. Easy finishes around the basket, staying vertical, only 2 fouls, and I thought one of them was questionable. And his minutes were not really lined up with Trae Young very often, so I don't think he got the full challenge. But again, Okongwu's been in the league for a little while, and against the opponent squads that they were rolling out there, and he was going against DeJounte Murray as the lead ball handler a few times. He kept his verticality and played really well. So pretty happy with Walker Kessler today, and yeah, I'm pretty thrilled about that. And yeah, we got a nice couple games coming up here. So. Love those who are checking out on YouTube and those who are here in our Twitter spaces today. I'm going to take a few sips of beer while our friend of the program, Andrew Streeter, has some comments about beating the Hawks today. What do you think, Andrew?
Oh, man. Have you noticed that Walker Kessler has a super unique blocking technique? He's got both hands up every time, and he's always switching to whichever one's closest. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do that. And clearly, I mean, he led all of college basketball with 4 blocks per game. And who knows, whatever is going to translate to the pros when you're, the best at something in college. But, man, did the Jazz win the T-Wolves trade without the picks? That's what I want to know at this point.
Well, I don't think we can go that far. And if you watch if you watch his Auburn tape, the reason I went from thinking oh great, another 7-foot white stiff guy ends up on the Jazz. Everyone's gonna say, oh, there's the Mormon. Playing who's going to play for the Jazz, because of course any white guy who plays for the Jazz who's American is Mormon, dating back to, I don't even know if there has been a Mormon guy on the Jazz in their history.
I cannot think of a single one. I can't think of a single one.
Do have any BYU grads on the team? Anyways, Walker Kessler, he's from Atlanta. He showed out today. So his Auburn tape, I went from being very disappointed about just all right, that's the guy we got, to being really excited about how he defended and got those 4.6 blocks a game. He wasn't just the large guy in the middle like you might have seen some of Taco Fall's tape going when he was playing for UC Irvine. He was defending pick and rolls pretty high up, having good recovery, and staying very vertical even when he's flying through the air. Or having to recover. And anyone who's played basketball at all just a little bit, probably the most exhausting thing is keeping your arms just up in the air. And that's how a lot of these young bigs get into foul trouble, is because their arms end up at that 90-degree angle that you see sometimes. And all a good ball handler has to do is just bump up into your arm, and that's a foul, and that's all it is. And Kessler's, to your point, his arms are just always just toothpicks straight up in the air, completely straight, and combined with good mobility, combined with being able to stay vertical, combined with being strong as hell, he just doesn't lose a lot of those. He doesn't provide many angles to actually score on him. And so when you end up throwing up a shot against him, he gets a great position for a block. So I completely agree with you that I was pretty stunned watching him not droop his arms. He defending guys with physicality without fouling. It's going to keep him in the league for a long, long time. His finishing he's got a natural finish around the rim. He doesn't really have a layup package. He doesn't really have the ability to change his shot if someone contests it. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when he gets the ball on the pick and roll around the free throw line. Rudy Gobert was just stellar at getting the ball at the free throw line and changing his angle and going hard to the rim. And for all of the complaints people had about Rudy Gobert's scoring ability, he could score around the rim while catching the ball at the free throw line, right? He was great at one dribble and figuring out how am I going to attack this opposing big man or whoever's in the lane here to have a nice deft finish around the hoop. I think we're learning that from Kessler. We know he can pass out of those positions, but I think we need to learn a lot about that offensively. But the defense is there as far as positioning and physicality, and we'll just have to see if the athleticism grows. I think you're looking at a guy who I think he's going to be like a Vika Zubac, I think, for his career, right? Is just like a guy that you can always reliably have at center, and who's
I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Ivica Zubac is a great get for in that trade, and in some respects, I think a lot of you could take the biggest Jazz fan in the world, the biggest Gobert fan in the world, you just can't bench Rudy Gobert, and you can't do anything different. Whereas if you have a guy who's at the level of quality of Ivica Zubac, you can say, hey man, against this opponent or in this playoff series, I know you've started every game for us, but in this series you're going to be a 12-minute-a-game guy, and you're going to play against bench units. And
to your point, that was kind of what Will Hardy did tonight with a lot of the starters. The Jazz were up like 14 or 15 in the first half, and that dwindled to like 8 or 9 at the half, and then the Hawks go on a huge run. And you look, like you said, Markin didn't have those great numbers, but his plus minus was pretty bad, like most everybody's. But I think Horton Tucker, Rudy Gay somehow, oh my gosh, led us to plus minus, and I felt like he had a terrible game. And then Walker Kessler, like it was bench guys that really turned it around.
So just to quickly clarify on the plus minus thing, pretty much all of the plus minus that you're looking at was that third quarter. Utah played really evenly with Atlanta throughout the entire game as far as what lineups or what players are working or not working. Markkanen was absolutely the best player on the floor in the first quarter. And then that third quarter happened where the starters just couldn't get anything going. The bench comes in, and Rudy Gay happens to be on the floor while Walker Kessler, Malik Beasley, and
I think you're totally right. That's absolutely what happened.
And Jordan Clarkson, right? So Mike Conley goes off the floor and replaces with Malik Beasley. So you end up with these lineups. I always like to write down my favorite lineup of the night. And today it was Clarkson, Beasley, Gay, THT, and Kessler. And Rudy Gay was not particularly impressive today, right? He very rarely is these days. But the Colin Sexton was struggling a little bit in the third quarter, and Sexton was obviously the first guy off the bench in the third quarter. Utah gives up the big run to Atlanta, and then you pull Sexton for Clarkson, immediately throw Clarkson back in, and Utah completely crushes Atlanta the rest of the game, the rest of the quarter. And so that's how you get those drastic plus minus, because the third quarter you have Olynyk, Markkanen, and Conley really struggling. Their plus minus looks like shit. Bench comes in, they bring the game back, they look a lot better. So it was really just like that weird third quarter where the starters just were missing weirdly and committing fouls and turnovers. And then the bench, part of it's just like Atlanta's depth is not exactly what you want, right? Like Justin Holiday probably had his best game of the year and like he's been very, very bad. But otherwise, you're putting AJ Griffin, a rookie, out there, and Jalen Johnson was getting completely worked today by everyone who played against him. He's another rookie. And Aaron Holiday is obviously just kind of whatever. And Okongwu was supposed to be like their bench differentiator, right? And the Utah bench completely erased him today. So I don't think that a minus 12 indicates what Lauri Markkanen did. I don't think minus 11 indicates what Mike Conley did. I do think plus 14 indicates Kessler's impact, and I do definitely think that plus 13 indicates what Malik Beasley was able to do to bring this team back and dominate the third and fourth quarters. So I'm with you there.
Man, your nemesis THT,
he's no longer my nemesis. THT is
better. He's getting better every game. And I saw Tony Jones tweet that an observation afterward that he thinks he's seen more growth out of THT since training camp than his first several seasons as a Laker. And it probably just speaks to how his style of play is more complementary on this team than on that one.
Well, I think it's environment. I absolutely think it's environment because THT is a guy. If you think about what his skills are, he's a pretty decent passer. He's a decent defender. He's a below average shooter, and he's got a high give a shit level, and he's a try hard guy, and he kind of needs the ball in his hands to really provide that oomph and that impact on a team, and you're just not going to provide it when you're on a Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Anthony Davis a team. And so in this, he's asked to be in the first couple weeks of the season, THT was asked to be basically the bench point guard, right? So Colin Sexton, while we were warming him up, we weren't asking Sexton, we still aren't asking Sexton to be a backup quote-unquote point guard. We're still asking Sexton to be a backup combo guard, do everything type, not really set the offense. And we put the ball in THT's hands, said, like, you run pick and roll. You run a lot of the offensive sets as the primary ball handler and get the ball in the places it's supposed to be. However, unfortunately for THT, he already has a reputation among defenses and scouting reports that says, hey, that guy can't shoot, and if he has the ball on a standstill, he does not have the acceleration or the speed to get by you. So when we're doing these set plays or running just a basic pick and roll with THT, he was not being put in a position to succeed. Now he comes in off the bench units and he's always playing with the Jordan Clarkson type pretty much all the time. Or if he is going to be running these sets, they're kind of like all these complete fluid motion type sets where he's getting the ball off the catch and he's just always moving and he's able to just be that chaos agent with the ball, and he knows he's a good passer. He's got a good basketball IQ, and now he's starting to put his limited athleticism to the test, and I'm sure everyone's saying, like, limited athleticism, have you seen the dunks he's done? I'm like, yeah, man, the guy's 6'6" with like a 7-foot like infinity wingspan. Like, I think he can dunk. I'm not saying he's a poor athlete. It's more that on offense he doesn't have the speed, the shake, the type of thing that you need out of a primary ball handler. Now Hardy's figuring out, like, no, let's get this guy in a position where he has defenses completely on edge with his complete freight train style of play, and it's cool to watch, man.
Oh, dude, first team to 10 wins. I know that the Bucks just got there after, because they played later, but first team to 10 wins.
Yeah,
best start since 2006, 2007 as a franchise.
Yeah, and I really don't think it should go. What I really want to hammer home this week as I start writing about this team this week is, yeah, this team won 10 wins, but their opponents have been tough, right? Like, even early in the
brutal, man, brutal, and it's going to continue to be through Christmas at least.
Yeah, and if you look at the teams we beat early on, they were the teams that carried maybe a little bit of skepticism, like the Pelicans. Like, are the Pelicans actually good? And Minnesota certainly has carried their skepticism all the way through. But looking back at all the teams that Utah has beaten so far, the Clippers included, their wins are against teams who are above 500. They're against quality basketball teams. The Hawks, I think their record is deceptive today. They were 7-3 going into today. I thought they've looked really shaky. I love watching the Hawks in general, just as like a basketball curiosity to see like if they're going to hit the next step. I also just watch a lot of NBA in general because I have a problem, and I thought they've looked way shakier than 7 wins. But hey, 7 wins, 7 wins, and that's a plus 500 team. We're gonna play Washington in the next couple days, and I think that's going to be a much tougher game. I think Washington has a pretty quality team that is a little bit underrated as far as what they can do, and like they're 5-6, and I think they're a little bit better than that. So quality 10 wins for the Jazz. This'll Andrew, I'll give you the closing comment before we sign off and enjoy Lakers Clippers, which is tied in the third quarter, and Cavaliers Kings going into the fourth quarter.
I just am, I'm running out of superlatives. Tonight was just amazing because I figured once the Hawks went on that run that they did in the third, I was like, well, okay, they're going to get run out of the building because that's what I'm used to seeing the Jazz do when they get hit in the mouth on the road. And that's not this team, man. This ain't last year's team. This is nothing but good vibes.
Yeah, and, I'm with you on the good vibes. I had every single game I'm tuning in, including the 3 losses. One of them I was in the building for in Denver. It's just a really fun team to watch, and they don't get beat by real shit stuff. You're not throwing your arms in desperation at some things. There have been some high turnover games at times this season. There was one game where Utah committed, I think, 35 fouls or something insane. I think that was the Timberwolves game. And
you're talking about the Rockets game. There was a Rockets game where they it was like something stupid. It was like almost 60 fouls total.
Oh yeah, it was the Rockets game where the two teams combined for over 60 fouls. There've been, but that's just bad. Like if you watch any team over 82 games, there's going to be some really dumb shit basketball games at times. But when it comes to the things that are reliable, like game after game, are annoying to watch. The Jazz don't have this consistent bugaboo that really makes you really pucker up and say, like, I don't really trust this team. And so they get punched in the mouth and they say, hey, you know who's been playing well today? Our bench unit. And, look at Atlanta's bench. They ain't got shit. We're gonna come back and we're gonna get this run again. And then Lauri Markkanen's on fire, and we're gonna close with Malik Beasley and get Conley out there, who's completely setting the table and abusing Trae Young. And as long as we keep our consistency and our cool of not fouling Trae Young, which we've done today, we'll be all right. And they did all of those things. And those are repeatable things. Those are consistent things. Those aren't hoping and praying that they're going to hold it out. Like the prior years where we're just like, I hope Donovan makes some shots. I hope Rudy Gobert has a game-saving defensive play. You're hoping your stars to really come through, whereas this team, you're just hoping they do what they're good at as like a regular play-by-play. Don't play ahead of yourselves. Don't play behind weaker opponents. And it's this consistent fun stuff. And, of course, it always helps when I'm able to clap my hands at a great Markkanen 3 or a Beasley 3 or a great Conley pass, in Jordan Clarkson's Jordan Clarksoning. So 4 wins in a row, still undefeated at home. We won't be home for quite a while. We get the Wizards on Saturday for the front of a back-to-back against Philly. The Northeast Corridor back-to-backs aren't usually as bad because you just these teams still fly, but that's a DC to Philly flight. Yeah, the
20-minute flight.
Yeah, DC to Philly flight I think is like you're like 33 minutes in the air or something crazy like that. I don't see why they don't just like take the train or something. But that's the poor person in me talking. Oh, why don't you just take public transit? But it's the idea of that they'll be able to get to a hotel room easily and they'll be able to sleep well, and those are pretty well established areas. And Philly might be without Joel Embiid. We know they're without James Harden. So I think it's an even matchup against the Wizards. I would expect the Wizards to be favored by maybe 1 or maybe to be 1 or 2 point favorite for the Jazz. And then Philly, that'll probably be a Philly favorite because it'll be the back end of a back-to-back on a Sunday. But a limited Philly team. So we'll see what happens when this team comes back home. Is this going to be a 12-3 basketball team? Who knows? Tune in Saturday night to find out. Thank you all for joining our delayed edition of the Salt City Hoops Live postcast. These will always be delayed because these teams when you're doing these East Coast games, can't really finish the game until 8 o'clock as it is. So thanks for tuning in when I am on, and let's go catch these West Coast games, and I'll see you all Saturday night. Have a great night.